Oh, you damn right. Recruiting never stops, especially when we are counting 2 weeks. Is it 2 weeks
Two
until
weeks
National
exactly.
Signing Day? I believe that's right. And it is the recruiting hour on this Wednesday. Pile on in, get us your super chats. ZOV is already in with hook 'em emojis, fire emojis, all kinds of stuff. And oh, by the way, we are 10 days away from Texas and Texas A&M renewing their rivalry. Let's see if each can handle their business this week. I'm Chad Hastings. That guy is Jason Sukamel, managing editor of orangebloods.com. Before we do anything else, let's direct you to orangebloods.com and the 321 article. We'll definitely be pulling some information from that this week, as we sometimes do on the recruiting hour, but it's a great hunk of recruiting info if you are a crazed recruiting freak. That's why you're here today, right? Jason, let's jump into it. We'll get into guys that are coming in for Texas and Kentucky, but one of those possible names has become the story of the week. So we made Michael Fasusi the focus of today's show in terms of the titles and the thumbnails and all that, because I know Texas fans are excited at the possibility of this whole thing. So let's get everybody updated on where the Michael Fasusi discussion is here. Oklahoma commit, but what did we find out this week that's got your interest?
Yeah, it's. Let me just kind of lay out the timeline of how this unfolded. Okay, Fasusi's obviously been committed to Oklahoma since late August. Uh, Chose Oklahoma over Texas and Texas A&M. Texas has been in touch, so has A&M. They never quit recruiting him. Sark went to his game a few weeks ago during the off week, went to his school. And Fasusi at that time said, oh, I might get down to Austin for a visit. Well, obviously, this being the last home game, I hit him up on Sunday and talked to him on the phone. And Sunday night, he was like, I'm thinking I'm going to try to get down there, but nothing's locked in, not set up yet. So I kind of called it like probable. He's probable to show up. And then on Monday, it comes out from Oklahoma reporters that he's coming to Texas for the game, Kentucky game. So I checked in with some Texas sources who would know, and they're like, no, it's not definite yet. Okay. So again, I kept saying, hey, I think it's going to wind up being true based on what Mike told me on Sunday, but it's not locked in yet. Well, then Tuesday morning, Fasusi's like, yes, it's on. He's coming to Austin, and he's going to the A&M Texas game. So that's the big news. He is coming in for the Texas game on Saturday. Another interesting element here, Chad. I don't think, based on what I've been told, I don't think he told the Oklahoma coaches of his intentions. I mean, I'm sure they knew it was a possibility. He'd mentioned a few weeks ago it was a possibility, but when it started leaking out, and probably started out with my report on Sunday that say, hey, I'm trying to get down there for that game. He had not talked to the Oklahoma coaches about it yet, is my understanding. So, and I don't know if you saw Brent Venables, I guess it was yesterday, at his press conference. He wasn't asked specifically about Fasusi because he can't comment on specific recruits, but just about recruits taking visits. And Venables has that policy, like you can't take visits if you're committed. So his comment was, and I'm paraphrasing, it was like something like, if you're taking visits, you're not committed. Well, I don't disagree with Brent Venables, but what's he going to do? Cut Michael Fasusi loose? No, dude. Fasusi holds the cards here. You're gonna have to just grin and bear it here a little bit. So, but yeah, that's the big development. He's coming in for the Texas game against Kentucky. He's then planning on being at the Texas A&M game on the Saturday following Thanksgiving on the 30th. So, big development there, and we're gonna have a lot to talk about leading up to signing day with Michael Fasusi.
Yeah, it's just huge. I mean, when you look at the schedule this week, the thing I've talked about this week, Jason, is Oklahoma hosts Bama this week. So he could do nothing. He could stay home, and I wouldn't say a word. But Oklahoma is hosting Alabama. If he's anywhere, if he is Sooner Till I Die, and all of the stuff he's been saying on that side of it, I'd feel great if I'm a Sooner fan if he's in the house. If he's at any other game, specifically Texas, Kentucky, that is just not good news. The Texas, Kentucky game, with all due respect to the Wildcats, that's not a rival. That's not some monster matchup. It's just I mean, if Oklahoma fans don't see this breakup coming, I don't know how to tell them any other way. I mean, it's just it is so obvious, I think, right now what is happening here. The big question for me, Jason, moving forward is if you were Fasusi and you're laying these kind of clues out there, would you just go ahead and decommit at some point between now and signing day?
It's so close to signing day. I don't think you'll see that happen. Okay. I think if he flips, it'll probably just be a flip, or it'll probably just be like, hey, I'm going to announce my final decision on National Signing Day. Okay. It'd be, if he kind of weird to decommit and then literally 2 weeks later or 7 days later, whatever, then commit somewhere else. And I'd say this, man, in talking to Fasusi, and I did ask him, I said, when he mentioned coming to Texas, I'm like, you also have Oklahoma hosting Alabama. I said, so you're thinking about that one too? He goes, maybe. It's like he was never really like, yeah, it's a great game. I got two great options. Like, kind of whatever. But he does still really like his Oklahoma commitment. He loves that Oklahoma staff. I think he's genuinely torn. And I wrote this, I think it was on Orange Bloods. It might have been my 3-2-1. Chad, I've already started writing my war room. All these stories are blending together. I can't remember where I said it, but I said, I don't know if Fasusi knows what he's going to do just yet. He still likes his Oklahoma commitment. He likes the staff there. I think he sees that maybe the better business decision is Texas or even Texas A&M. There's more stability in those staffs than what's you're seeing in Norman. Who knows what's going to happen with Bill Bedenbaugh, the Oklahoma offensive line coach. Who knows what's going to happen with that entire staff. I'm assuming Venables will be back next year, but hey, if Oklahoma goes up there and lays 50 on them, who the heck knows what could happen there. But I don't know that Fasusi truly knows what he wants to do yet. I mean, he kind of told me, he said, man, I'm just kind of letting things play out. He doesn't have like a concrete plan. It's just kind of like, I'm just letting things play out and then talk to my family, and whatever feels like the best option will be the best option. And that's what he'll do. Now for Texas, you got a couple things weighing in your favor. Obviously, the program is trending the right direction under Sark in last year and this year. The bigger thing, I think, is the opportunity to come in and play early. When Texas was recruiting him, last spring and in the summer, that didn't look as solidified because, Kelvin Banks is probably gone, but who knew what was going to happen with Cam Williams? You have Trevor Gooseby ready to slide in at left tackle. Well, now it looks like Texas is going to lose both their starting tackles, right? Trevor Gooseby is going to slide into one of those spots, but there's not much experience at all behind Gooseby. So that leaves one of those other spots open for Michael Fasusi to come in and play as a true freshman. Trevor Goosby's been cross-training at right tackle, right? He came in at right tackle a few weeks ago when Cam Williams got hurt for a couple plays. So you can look at that and say, hey, Goosby's already playing some right tackle. Michael Fasusi, you can come in and be our Kelvin Banks, be a true freshman left tackle starter. So that Texas depth chart and that roster is a lot more appealing, I think, for Michael Fasusi than it was when he committed to Oklahoma. So there's a lot of things going on in this, Chad. A lot of things pulling him in different directions. We haven't even talked about A&M. I mean, A&M's a player in this thing too, a legitimate player. So a lot of different ways I still think this thing could go. I know there are some people that think he'll wind up sticking with Oklahoma, Oklahoma reporters. I've seen some national people still leaning that way. I don't think so. I think he's gonna wind up flipping to either Texas or Texas A&M. I still favor Texas the way things stand right now.
Jason, in case you have not heard my expert analysis, Brandon said he enjoyed it, so I'll share it with you. Says, I still love Chad's previous comments of maybe Fasusi's mom wants him to go somewhere she can yell and he can hear her, or that has more available parking. This is my theory of why he may go to Oklahoma, because when she shouts out, Michael, I love you, he's going to hear her loud and clear in Norman, and they can park way closer to the stadium.
Yeah, well, hey, something small like that could tip the scales. I would hope not. But if it's that close of a race, we'll see what happens.
But the other thing, you mentioned A&M. So to me, of the two games too, like you and I think had talked about the notion that a Fasusi, there's some other big names that may end up in College Station on November 30th. There are multiple reasons why you'd want to do that. Plus, Oklahoma's in Baton Rouge that weekend. So the Texas-Kentucky game to me is just this massive blinking light. Brent Venables could explain to you, me, and anybody, Jason, why Fasusi would end up in College Station, but he knows he can't explain why he's in Austin this weekend. Like, there is,
you got Oklahoma hosting Alabama, right? And it's not like it'd be different if Oklahoma was an 8-hour drive and Austin's a 3-hour drive. But I would guess from Louisville, I think it might be closer to Norman than Austin, honestly. Kentucky, it's a 2:30 kick. It's, I mean, fortunately for Texas, Louisville's season came to an end last week, so that kind of opened up some freedom there for Fasusi. But yeah, the fact that he's coming in to watch Texas host Kentucky, and like you said, all due respect to Kentucky, we've seen Kentucky play pretty well. Over going to Oklahoma hosting Alabama, that can't. Yeah. There's no positive way you can spin that if you're the Oklahoma Sooners. Yeah.
No. And of course, then when you compare those other two schools, comparing the two Longhorn rivals and where they've ended up, I think we can all safely say Oklahoma has been worse than a lot of people thought, maybe way worse. Mm-hmm. And the Aggies have probably been a little better.
Yep. Yeah.
So those two things may factor in. Also, we had Jose jump in with a quick chat question. Jason, how is A&M's O-line situation? Maybe Chad can answer that. Jason, obviously, I'll let you jump in too, but to me, there's definitely not a Kelvin Banks on that offensive line at A&M. There's some good players there, but to me, the argument for you can play pretty quickly, I think it's in College Station for Fasusi as well.
Yeah, that's why, everybody has always assumed if he decommits from Oklahoma, it's going to be Texas. And that's where I would lean. But I've said this probably to you, Chad, and until I'm blue in the face, don't discount A&M in this race. I mean, they are a legitimate, serious contender to flip Michael Fasusi. I'm not as familiar with their depth chart as you are. You know better than I do. But, I mean, if he has a chance to come in and play early, and, I mean, A&M was heavily involved there at his first commitment back in August. So I would lean Texas right now, but I'm telling you, A&M's, they're in the mix. And if he goes to that game, which he is planning on going, that game in College Station, and just loves the atmosphere and the environment and vibes well with the coaches, and A&M plays well. Listen, I mean, A&M could really shake this thing up at the last minute.
Yeah, it's going to be wild to see. So keep your eyes peeled for that, and we'll get to the rest of the list that Jason has been putting together for who's coming in. But even if it was just Fasusi coming in to watch Texas play Kentucky, that's enough to make it a story. So we'll circle back around to who will be at the 2:30 kick, by the way, in case you didn't remember that. Big mid-afternoon game with Texas and Kentucky. But, Jason, before we do that, let's kind of look back, because I know last week you had talked about it I think we talked about it in the recruiting hour. I know you mentioned it in the war room and in some of your reporting last week. Some fans got a little freaked out on House Divided Friday when they saw Jamie French was headed to Gainesville. And I tried to calm them down to say, well, wait a minute. Jason Sukumel told you this was happening. He talked to Jamie French before. You also got to speak with Jamie afterwards. So it's Jamie French and a couple other Longhorn commits in this class ended up in Gainesville visiting for obviously what became a big Florida upset win, getting that win against LSU. So let's lay it out. Start with French and just kind of let's go one by one through these three guys.
Yeah, Jamie French was there on an official visit, so that's a little different than the other guys. He was actually there for the full weekend on an official visit. Jamie French, of course, the five-star receiver from Jacksonville, Florida, Texas commitment, obviously, goes down there for an official visit. He'd kind of told us, we saw him at the airport when he was leaving after was it the Georgia game? Man, I'm getting all these games blurred together, but I did catch him a couple weeks ago. No, I think it was after the Florida game. I think. And he had said, hey, I'm going to either probably go see like a Florida or a Miami game just to see like an in-state school. Okay, didn't think a whole lot of it. But then he goes Florida for an official visit. Okay, and his high school quarterback and his 7-on-7 quarterback, Tramel Jones, a Rivals 100 member, flips his commitment from Florida State to Florida. That just happened over the weekend. Mm-hmm. DJ Lagway, he loves what he's seen from DJ Lagway, the true freshman quarterback. So Florida suddenly, reportedly is using the money that they were going to use to buy out Billy Napier's contract, whatever, how many millions of dollars that was. They're putting a lot of that towards NIL, right? So for these recruits. So they're trying to
Yeah.
kind of build this class, and they're mainly focused on offensive skill guys. Okay. So obviously Jamie French is a priority for them. Jamie went down there for his official visit, and he and I texted afterwards. I said, hey, can you just give me a comment? People are asking, where do things stand? And I don't have the quote. I could pull it. Oh, no, I'm sorry. He said, it's always hook 'em. He says, great visit, great environment, but quote, it's always hook 'em. Okay. That's a good quote for Texas, right? That's what you want to hear.
Yeah.
And I tend to believe him to a large degree, but not 100%. I mean, Florida's not going away in this. There are some Florida people who think they've got their foot in the door now. Can they kick it open? We'll see. But Jamie French, he's a guy that I think we'll be watching this thing, Chad, probably all the way till signing day. And I have a sneaky suspicion there are going to be some nervous moments between now and signing day with this one. So, we'll see what happens. Now, Jamie did tell me a couple weeks ago he was trying to get back to Austin for this Kentucky game this weekend. I actually sent him a message yesterday. I have not heard back, so we'll see if that happens. If he comes back this weekend, that'd be a huge development. Then I'm like, okay, that alleviates most of the concerns you have moving forward. If he doesn't, hey, Florida's not going to go away, and neither is Miami, actually. So I think Texas is going to have to fight for this one all the way until that letter of intent comes in.
So a couple of things here before we leave Jamie French. If he were to flip anywhere, but let's say Florida, if he were to flip to Florida, does that make Michael Terry just that much more important for Texas? Is that the next name you'd go to?
Yeah, a couple kind of different style players, but yeah, I mean, Texas wants Michael Terry regardless. If they lose Jamie French, do you try to make a late run at Dallas Wilson, who's committed to Oregon, or do you just throw a line in the water for Decorian Moore? I don't know where they would go at receiver. It's so late, but I would expect they will put as many lines in the water as they can. But obviously, Michael Terry would be a huge part of that. That increases his value to this class. You have to land Michael Terry if you lose Jamie French.
The other thing to keep in mind for scheduling in terms of Florida's momentum, remember, they host Ole Miss this week, and I think Ole Miss is for real, and I think the Lane Kiffin thing wouldn't apply here, but we're going to need to see it. If they were to get that kind of a win, we all agree they're better than Florida State right now, very possibly, that they're going to get a rival win at the end of the year. So could Florida get some more momentum? Just something to keep in mind in terms of where that team is. So Jamie French, we'll keep our eyes peeled for that one. Real quick, let's throw this super chat in, Jason, from our guy Money B. What's up, Money B? Thank you for that 5 spot. Jason, is D-Hawk having an influence on Fasusi? On another note, these recruits are smart and using these visits to get the most NIL value. A Donald Hawkins question for you.
Yeah, D-Hawk trains Fasusi and has for a while. Money B, I've never got the impression in talking to Fasusi, and I've seen Donald Hawkins at a camp with Fasusi. I've never got the impression that Hawkins is like pushing him any one direction. I mean, you'd think it'd be Texas, right, with his ties to the program, but I've just never got that impression. And and I say this, if I'm reading that correctly, kudos to Donald Hawkins, because sometimes these people get too involved and they let their emotions get too involved. But I don't think he would have committed to Oklahoma the first time if Donald Hawkins was really pushing Texas that hard. So, I'm sure if Fasusi asked him, hey, what was your experience like at Texas? And, Hawkins would tell him, but I don't get the impression that he is actively pushing and trying to force his way into this recruitment. So I don't think he's having much of an influence based on my conversations. The second part, Money B, you're exactly right. These recruits are smart, using these visits to get the most NIL value. 100%. Listen, if you're Jamie French and Florida's throwing around crazy NIL dollars all of a sudden, listen, dude, if it was my kid, I'd be like, hell yeah, go take that visit, right? I get it. The loyalty thing, you want them to be loyal, but at the same time, this is a business, man. These guys are trying to set themselves up for their future. And a lot of these guys have agents who are advising them now. So absolutely. I mean, I've said this all along. It makes sense. It's so smart. If I'm Colin Simmons, okay, wouldn't I say, hey, you know what? I'm going to put my name in the transfer portal. If some team's going to say, we'll give you $2 million, then okay, Texas, you better match that $2 million or I'm going to Georgia or whatever. I said that about Kelvin Banks when he was a freshman. I mean, I don't like it. It's kind of shady. I don't like even saying that, but from a pure business perspective, doesn't it make sense, right? If you're a recruit, to take some of these late visits and kind of drive up NIL prices at the last minute, or if you're a player, to put your name in the portal, kind of weigh your value there. So I think there's a lot of truth to that, Money B, that some of these recruits know what they're doing, and they may be pushing up NIL offers here with these late visits.
I think every Texas fan that's watching right now, Jason, is thinking, "Hey, dude, calm down. Let's calm down."
He's like an A&M freshman instead.
Let's keep that quiet. Keep that quiet. Real quick, Jareth says, Jason, are we still solid on Lockett too? No news is good news, but I'm just curious. Kalik Lockett.
No news is good news, I think is right. And Kalik, I need to hit him up to see if he's coming into the game this weekend, but they may be playing, but it's an afternoon game. A lot of these guys will still be able to make it. But yeah, haven't heard any rumblings with anything to worry about on Kalik Lockett.
Yeah, I think that guy's going to be awesome. Keep in mind, Texas fans, I'm also the president of the John Tay Cook fan club. So we'll see. We saw where that got me. But I really enjoy
I still think John Tay's going to have a good career somewhere. If he gets in the right situation, I'm not throwing in the towel on John Tay.
I do too, man. If he gets his head screwed on straight, that talent is undeniable. They just got to figure out how to dial it all up just right. He's got to figure out how to dial it all up just right. All right, so Jason, back to Gainesville and a couple other visitors. These other two guys are Texas commits, and they were unofficial visitors. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yep.
All right, so let's go to Myron Charles, D tackle, if I'm not mistaken, from this Texas class. What do we need to know there?
Yeah, Myron is a guy who's kind of let me pull his profile up real quick. He's committed to Florida State. I thought maybe he had a commitment before that, but I think I'm thinking of Hilson. But he's committed to Florida State. He flipped to Texas. Well, Chad, I was on the post-game show with you and Catch, that Michigan game. And I'm like, oh, Myron Charles committed, got to go. So he had told me he'd actually committed a few days prior. He just announced it that day. But he's always been, even when he committed to Texas and I talked to him, it's like, okay, are you locked in? You still going to take other visits? He goes, no, I'll probably keep it open and take some other visits. Well, last week he winds up going to Florida for an unofficial visit, as you said. And I interviewed Myron on Sunday. And he said it was a good atmosphere. It was good to see everybody again. I like the coaches down there and the atmosphere. And I said to him, hey, should Texas be worried at all? Or are you still locked in with Texas? And his quote was, I don't know. Okay. And I'm like, oh, that's not the endorsement you want to hear if you're Texas. Now,
and just to be fair, Jason, was that sent to you via like a text message or was that spoken to you?
That was a phone conversation. Yeah,
okay.
That was an actual conversation. Yeah.
Okay.
So, Charles did tell me he's trying to get to Austin this weekend for the Kentucky game. I've got a bunch of guys I need to text this. That's on my agenda for this afternoon. Mm-hmm. If he comes in this weekend, that will alleviate some of those concerns. Some, not all. I will say this, Chad. A Florida person told me yesterday there is some confidence in Gainesville of Charles flipping to Florida. Now, that doesn't come from people in the program like football coaches and things, but, big money boosters who have their kind of hands in some of these things, they feel like there's a strong chance they're going to flip Myron Charles. I don't really know. I mean, I'm in my war room, I'm writing about all these guys that Texas could potentially flip, and I'm rating my confidence, like low, moderate, high. And then I'm rating guys that could flip from Texas to another school. Same thing. What's my level of concern? Low, moderate, high. And for Charles, I think I put moderate to high, or I might even put high. I'm not sure. Texas is going to work to keep him, and Texas is throwing out lines at any defensive tackles they can try to secure. But they need to fight to hold on to Myron Charles, and right now Florida's making that really tough.
That's interesting. Okay, so keep an eye on Myron Charles as well. Another guy that visited Gainesville this weekend was Zealous Hicks. What do we need to know there?
Zealous Hicks, fairly recent commitment for Texas, and then of course reclassified to the 2025 class from 2026. Mm-hmm. He did visit Tennessee a few weeks ago. He was at Florida. I think it was a multi-day visit from what I'm told, unofficial visit. Here's the deal. He's coming in this weekend, Chad, to Austin for his official visit.
Oh, so okay.
I don't know this. Zealous hasn't told me this, but I think he's just kind of enjoying the process because, he's not, because of his reclassification, he's not getting to go through this experience where he gets to go to these visits and get wined and dined and by these programs. So this weekend he'll be in Austin on his official visit. I think that kind of tightens that thing up a little bit. Florida's not going to go away. Tennessee's not going to go away. He does have one more opportunity for a visit the weekend after the Texas visit this weekend. So we'll see if anything happens there. But right now, of the three guys we're talking about that visited Florida, I feel like he's the least likely to flip his commitment.
Okay. And then that obviously would be great news for Texas fans if he is coming into town this weekend. So we've already gotten a couple names of guys that are coming in for the Texas-Kentucky game. We will get you a couple of more names that Jason is hearing, and obviously be checking orangebloods.com throughout the week, especially once we get to Thursday night and the war room with everybody that is coming in. So we will get you that. Let's take a quick breath here and let you hear from Specs. Get all stocked up. It is a 2:30 kick for Texas and Kentucky. If you're a Cowboys fan and you drank that game away on Monday like I did, you're going to need more. Here's the reminder.
Specs same-day delivery can save the day with our Specs app or online shopping. From world-class wines to hard-to-find spirits and craft beers to gourmet foods, delicious snacks, and spectacular sweets. It's Specs. Cheers to savings.
Jason, it almost sounds like a joke, but when it's so bad that your stadium's falling apart, like that's an indicator, it's just sad.
Or if you were a Steelers fan and we're celebrating Sunday night, you better have loaded up on Specs on Saturday.
I was going to say, how great a weekend did you have as a Steelers fan? You get the win against the Ravens, and then you watch the Cowboys absolutely puke on their shoes on a Monday night.
You know what? Like, I never root for the Cowboys, but I kind of was on Monday a little bit just because I'm looking at playoff seeding and these types of things and the Texans and the Steelers. So I was like, well, this would actually help the Steelers if the Cowboys won. But I didn't watch much of that game. It was pretty much over pretty early on, I felt like. So yeah.
Sad. It was such a sad ball game.
How did my Steelers lose to that team?
I have no clue.
Well, Dallas was more healthy at that point, but yeah, that's frustrating.
I still remember watching that game in just waiting for the Steelers to take it. Even on that very last play, I just thought, this is probably where it ends. And it's just like the Cowboys one game where they actually made some plays. But I definitely would rather have the Steelers lot in life right now. You'll swap that one loss out for everything else I think you've seen so far. Before we get back to Texas and Kentucky in terms of who's coming in to visit, we'll remind you to come visit us at TCH Social Austin. That special, sorry, I should say those specials start an hour before. So 1:30, $1 draft and $2 jellyfish crank up. It's a 2:30 kick, and those specials run till 1 hour after the game is over. Come on up to TCH Social Austin. I added some food to the picture this week. Not only that big, beautiful screen, biscuits and gravy available if that's your sort of thing. That's my chicken sandwich in the lower right. And right there between the drink and the sandwich is the Bad Beat Bacon. If it just looks like a cup of bacon, that's because it's a cup of bacon. But it is the best bacon you have ever had in your life. So come on out and see us at TCH Social Austin. We'll have the post-game show out there. And if you think about the timing of it, as we are in post-game, basically as Texas is finishing up, they're finishing up on ABC. A&M and Auburn kick at 6:30 on ESPN. So if you're a Texas fan, you're obviously going to be peeking in on that game. Just come on out to TCH Social Austin. They'll have all the games on, and obviously Texas will be on that big, beautiful screen in the middle. So come on out and see us. Okay, so let me double check and see if we've gotten any. We did get one. No, we got that super chat. I wanted to mention real quick before we talk about this, it goes into the conversation in a way. But Blue Jay says, I mentioned above hearing on another site, how dare you, that Cade Phillips has decided to visit Texas, Kentucky with his parents, evidently unhappy with commitment to LSU, with Brian Kelly ranting. As we get to this discussion about who may be coming in, Jason, do you concur on this one? Cade Phillips?
Yeah, Blue Jay, you should have said, hey, I read on orangebloods.com last night or yesterday that Cade Phillips is coming in, because Cade told me that last night, actually. So Cade is coming in. And, I don't know that he's super unhappy with his commitment. Okay, he hasn't told me that, but let me tell you a little background on Cade Phillips. He took his Texas official visit. Let me pull up his profile here. Give me 1 sec. So his Texas official visit was in June, and I think it was the weekend after LSU. Yes, it was. He visited LSU on the 14th, and then he visited Texas on the 21st. And I love Cade Phillips. First off, he's an awesome kid, and I've talked to him on the phone. I've interviewed him after track meets, and I was able to interview him literally when he was leaving his Texas visit, his official visit. And I said, hey, kind of at that time, it was off the record. I said, where do things stand between Texas and LSU? Because those were his final two. A&M was in there for a while. They dropped out, or he dropped them out, I should say. But literally leaving his Texas official visit, he said, yeah, I'm kind of feeling LSU more than Texas. I'm like, okay, well, that's not a good sign for Texas, right? When a guy is just leaving his official visit, usually he's like, oh my gosh, this was amazing. He said, yeah, I'm favoring LSU. He told me off the record. I said, okay. And then that was June 21st. Well, about 2 weeks later, the tide had turned. He ends up committing to Texas. And Cade gave me a heads up. Hey, I'm committing to Texas. And I said, okay, what changed, from our conversation after that visit? And he said, well, I just spent some time thinking about it and talking to people, and I feel like there's more opportunities at Texas in terms of football and away from the field. Okay, so he commits to Texas, and felt like things were going pretty well. But then a little over a month later, he flips his commitment to LSU. And there's some behind the scenes stuff there, but he ends up flipping his commitment to LSU. Things have been pretty quiet there for the last 3 months, but Texas really does want another defensive back in this class, a guy who can play corner. Cade can do both. He can be a safety. He can be a cornerback. So they've been talking to him. They've been talking to Kobe Sellers at A&M. They've been, the Gillard kid who's committed to Oklahoma, visited for the Georgia game. They've been throwing out lines, and seeing who's going to nibble. Well, Cade Phillips is coming in this weekend for the game. I'm not going to say that he's going to flip, but I do have him as a moderate, like I mentioned earlier from my war room, low, moderate, high chances of flip. I think it's a moderate chance. Cade's not a, it sounds weird to say, okay, he was favoring LSU, then committed to Texas, then flipped to LSU, and now he might flip back to Texas. But he's not a wishy-washy kid. He's just not. I mean, I think those two have always been so close that, maybe different months, one edges out in front of the other, but it's not like he's a kid just wakes up on the spur of the moment and says, I'm going to flip my commitment. It's just been that close of a race. But can Texas close the gap? We'll see. Cade will be in town this Saturday. I'll talk to him after the visit. I hope to. I'm assuming he'll talk to me, which he usually does, and we'll try to get a read on it. But him coming in for the game, it's a big development. Listen, Rivals has Cade Phillips number 147 nationally. I think they've got him severely underrated. I think one of the other networks, I don't even know which one, someone mentioned this. I think one of them recently moved him to 5-star status. Now, is he a 5-star? I don't know, but he's a big kid at 6'2", a very filled out 170, if that makes sense. He's not, 6'2", 170, you'd think, okay, it's tall and lean, but no, he's pretty broad shoulders and filled out. This is a guy that, well, I'll tell you, he out-jumped DeCorey Moore in the triple jump at the state track meet.
Wow.
DeCorey Moore off the podium. Mm-hmm. So, Cade Phillips to me is a guy with tremendous upside. And if Texas can get him, I think that's a huge addition for this Texas class, even though maybe Rivals doesn't have him quite rated as highly as I think they probably should.
And he projects as a straight-up cornerback, or is it just somewhere in the defensive backfield?
Somewhere in the defensive backfield. They've talked to him about safety. They've talked to him about corner. Blake Gideon was kind of his main point of contact, but he can play corner. They've talked about playing corner. Everybody says, oh, Cade wants to play corner. He wants to play corner. And maybe he favors that a little bit, Chad. I've talked to him about it, dude, like 5 times. He goes, I just want to get on the field. Either one I'm fine with. So I don't think it's a deal breaker either way. But Texas has talked to him about playing ball.
Could be a guy that just wants to go to DBU. He just can't figure out where that is right now.
Well, yeah, exactly. Is that Texas? Is that LSU? Yeah,
there's a ton of people in Baton Rouge who would tell you they're DBU, and obviously a lot of people in Austin believe that that's DBU. So he'll be trying to figure that out. Cade Phillips, another name that will be coming in this weekend for Texas and Kentucky. All right, so Jason,
look at Pete Brandt's comment. Put that up for me for real quick. You see that?
Hang on. Where are we? Right here.
Remember we were talking to Pete last week, and his son's a DB.
Oh, look at that!
He's actually 50-17. Wow. Season will come to know if your kid plays Duncanville on Friday.
Ooh.
Pete, yeah. I just hope your kid gets out of that game healthy. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, I hope they pull the upset, because I'm going to try to be realistic with you. But I just hope your kid has a good game, has a great season, and comes out of that game healthy, and maybe they can make it competitive.
And if your kid is covering Decorian Moore, just get the back pedal ready. Get the back pedal.
That's awesome, though, Pete, that someday your kid will be saying, literally, he's our age, 50, 51, where the hell I am now. Man, one day in back-to-back weeks, I covered Kalik Lockett and Decorian Moore. He'll be telling that story for the rest of his life. So that's pretty awesome. Good for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, those are the stories that will live forever. Thank you for throwing that in. All right, Jason. So obviously we started with the big name of Fasusi, but for weeks we have also talked about a really big name that at one point was scheduled to come in and see Texas and Kentucky. So let me ask about Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng, number 1 outside linebacker, if I'm not mistaken, in the country in this class. Is he still coming to see the game?
I haven't heard otherwise. Okay. I keep saying I've been working on so much other crap that I need to reach out to him today and double confirm. But yes, I do expect him still to come in for an official visit. You know, it was kind of a Michigan-Notre Dame battle here, right? He visited Notre Dame a couple weeks ago, and I'm just going to say it, allegedly, while at Notre Dame, he was recruiting for Michigan. So Notre Dame said, you know what, thanks, but no thanks. Like, we're going to go a different direction.
That's weird. Let's clarify, the brother went to Notre Dame, correct?
Brother went to Notre Dame. That's right. Yeah.
Wow. Went to the school the brother ended up and may have allegedly been recruiting for Michigan.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, okay, he's going to Michigan, right? Well, last week he goes to Colorado, and now Colorado supposedly made a really strong impression. So Colorado, some people think Colorado might be right there in the race with this thing with Michigan. Texas gets their chance to swing for the fences this weekend. I mean, we'll see what happens. But right now, I mean, he hasn't visited Texas, right? So clearly Texas is playing from behind. He's been to Michigan and Colorado multiple times. So Texas has ground to make up in this one. But, hey, man, a school like Texas can close that gap in a hurry, right? You get a guy on campus for an official visit. You put him up in the Four Seasons. And the weather will probably be nice here. So we'll see what happens. But, yeah, he is – at last check, and I need to double confirm that, but he is expected to be in town this weekend for an official visit. We'll see if Texas can knock this one out of the park and make a dent with Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng.
That would be huge with that him and Fasusi coming in on the same weekend. And by the way, for what it's worth, Deion Sanders was asked about other jobs this week, and he very clearly said he's happy where he is. He's content. He's got his kickstand down. He used the bicycle analogy from when we were kids. He said, I got my kickstand down. I'm comfortable and all that stuff. So whatever that's worth for a guy that might be considering Colorado. All right, Jason. So those are the biggest names, I would argue, that will be in this weekend. What other names do you know at this point?
You know, like I haven't started building up my full list. Again, that'll be starting this afternoon, this evening. Just a couple guys who have tweeted about it. Tank King's a linebacker from here in Texas. Sean Scott's a linebacker out of California. So, and I think you'll have a lot of Texas commitments coming in, even guys that play on Friday night, because it's a afternoon game. They'll have a chance to get some of those guys on campus. So, and I'm still not, there's a couple other guys that I think might show up that haven't been put out there. And one of them I reached out to because there were some questions to me about if this player who's committed elsewhere is going to show up. And I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to put it out there, put misinformation. But I did hit him up last night, and I said, "Hey, are you coming in for the game?" The Texas game. And I said, "If you are, and you don't want me to put it out there, let me know, and I'll stay quiet until you make it to campus." And he has not responded, and he's usually fairly responsive. Okay. To me, if you're not coming into the game, right, you say, nope, not coming, because you want to put that fire out. The fact that I haven't heard back from this player tells me, I need to be keeping an eye out for him on Saturday, showing up to the game. And it's a player who's committed elsewhere, but he's taken some other visits. I don't think it's fair to put the kid's name out there because maybe he just hasn't seen my text or something. I don't know.
Right.
But he hasn't denied it, and it's been 12 hours or so, or actually more than that.
Okay.
He has not denied it. So, and it's a player that Texas has been talking to and recruiting pretty aggressively. So I'm still waiting to see if he comes in.
Interesting. Okay. So we'll keep our eyes peeled for that, eyes and ears peeled on all of that stuff as we're looking for Texas and Kentucky and who's coming in for a visit. And there was something that you just reminded me of a question and now I just lost it. We were talking about Owusu Boateng. We've talked about Fasusi. Is there anything else you wanted to get out today? Am I missing something? I think we've hit everything that we talked about.
Yeah, I can seriously, I think the War Room tomorrow, people will enjoy it because I'm just going through all the guys who are potential flips. Like Javion Hilson, he was at Pittsburgh last week. I think he's going to Florida this weekend, so we're kind of keeping an eye on there. I still am expecting him for the A&M game against Texas. Joseph Mbachu, the Texas defensive line defensive line target. He visited Florida last weekend. He's a one-time Florida commitment. I'm on record. People are putting these crystal balls or whatever, Futurecast or whatever this week about him going to Texas. I'm on record back in October. Hey, they're predicting him to Texas. So, and I'm sticking to that prediction. I'll just do it. I'll peek behind the curtain. When he visited Texas back in, let me see when that was, Chad. It was in October. I don't remember what game that was for, but there were some rumblings behind the scenes that we had heard that he might go ahead and is October 18th. So whatever game that would have been, that he might go ahead and flip his commitment to Texas during that visit. He was still committed to Florida. Well, he didn't, but he ended up decommitting from Florida that following Monday. All right. That's a bit of a sign, right? You visit Texas, you decommit the next day. I actually wrote a commitment story. So I've had a commitment story written from him since October 18th, I guess. So I've been waiting for that thing to go down. I still think it looks pretty good for Texas, but he has taken a lot of other visits, including, like I said, he was at Florida last week. I know USC and Tennessee and some of these other schools are trying to get him on campus. So we're still monitoring that one. We got 2 weeks left, dude. There's a lot of things to kind of keep an eye on. Riley Pettijohn, Dorian Brood. Does Texas have a chance to flip any of those guys? Cortland Guillory, Kobe Sellers, Chase Sims, Justice Terry. All those guys I put in low to moderate confidence. Zion Williams, defensive lineman. Kevin Wynn. But I'll have a rundown of all those guys in the War Room on Thursday. But we're at the time of year now where things start really popping up out of the blue. Yeah. Things move pretty quickly. You'll see guys show up on campus that weren't necessarily expected. So just stay tuned to Orange Bloods. Stay tuned to Orange Bloods Live, and we'll keep you updated on all the developments as they happen.
Jason, I remember what I was going to ask you because today for House Divided, Ketch and I are going to get into a little bit of a Lance Jackson discussion. There was a reworking of the star rankings and updated star rankings, and he ends up just outside of the 5-star area. Give me your reaction to that.
He's number 33, and traditionally Rivals gives out 32 5-star rankings. I think last year they got 31 is all. So if he holds that position, in theory, he'll miss out on 5-star by one spot, but they'll do another rankings update, so he could move up again. What's my reaction? Ketch and I've been beating that drum since before he committed to Texas, dude. Lance Jackson is a fantastic specimen. I think he's one of the top players in the country. We're quibbling over 1 or 2 spots, whether he's a 5-star or the highest of high 4-stars, but I think he's kind of steadily climbed up those rankings. And I think it's deserved. I saw him at a camp. I don't know if it was a Rivals camp or Under Armour. I can't remember. But he and Jakeem Hicks was the number 1 player in the country at 2026. He reclassified to 2025, and I think he's now, I don't remember, maybe 4th in the country. I'm trying to pull it up here. But I saw Jakeem Hicks, who's incredible. Looks like Hicks fell a little. Jakeem Stewart. I'm sorry. He's number 8 in the country. He was number 4. He's now number 8. I didn't see a whole lot difference between Jakeem Stewart and between when I saw those two side by side, I was like, I don't know. They kind of look pretty similar in their frame and their explosiveness. and everything else. So, we'll see. He's up to number 33, Lance is. Like I say, traditionally that would be one spot away from being a 5-star player. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can take that next step. But I think it's a very deserved and long overdue move.
There you go. Keep an eye out for that last reclassification, not reclassification, but the last look at the star rankings, which is January.
They'll do it after the bowl All-American games, which are usually like the first 2 weeks of January. So there'll be one right before that February signing period, probably.
Gotcha. Okay. Before we get out of here, our man Money B says, I might pull up to TCH after the game. Money B, it would be great to see you. The drink specials start an hour before. $1 draft, $2 jellyfish. TCH Social Austin. Again, let's flash up that bad beat bacon and some of the other stuff. By the way, our man Mark over there on the left, he had a Texas tea. So if you're not into the beer side, they've got great mixed drinks for you as well, and well drinks and liquor and stuff. But they also have those great beer specials. One of those beer specials that you can tell I was working on is on the right-hand side there. I think that was a Stella. If I'm not mistaken. And $1 draft for a Stella is absolutely silly. So get on out there, try the bad beat bacon, come out and see us. And again, we will have the post-game show for Texas and Kentucky. And if you're a Texas fan, you hope that we've had what we have had these last, really almost every game with Texas. We have yet to have a post-game show where we come on and the game is in doubt. Now, one of those was Georgia up on Texas, of course, but we have not had one yet that it involved any kind of drama. So we'll see if it's the same thing with Texas and Kentucky. A 20.5-point line on that one. Jason, before we duck out, not asking for a specific prediction, but do you have a sense for whether you're going to have Texas winning and covering this week? Have you thought about that yet?
I haven't actually. In literally like 10 minutes before we came on the air, I was talking to some Kentucky sources, kind of picking their brain on that Kentucky team. And the one thing that stood out to me in my conversation is Kentucky tries to do what Arkansas did and what Vanderbilt did. They'll try to just, by their scheme, they try to keep everything in front of them and not allow a lot of deep shots. Okay. So I'm like, okay, well, both those other teams that have tried to employ that style have done a good job of keeping Texas from racing up and down the field. So I don't know that it's a game where we see Texas, maybe Quinn Ewers hits on a couple of those deep balls he missed last week, but is this going to be a game where Texas, runs up 35 points? I don't know. I don't necessarily see that after what we've seen from the offense, recently. So obviously I'm going to pick Texas to win. And will I pick them to cover, Chad? I don't know. That Kentucky offense is pretty bad on the flip side. So I could see it being a 30-13 type game. So what is that? 17,
so not quite.
I don't know. I want to kind of do a little more research, but I could see it kind of being in that range. So I think it'll be close.
Yeah. By the way, the horrible witch's brew that Ole Miss put together at home to lose to Kentucky, here's what it was. 8 penalties, lose the turnover battle, 1 for 10 on third down, and let Kentucky possess the ball for 40 minutes.
Wow.
That's how you do it. They lost it like 20-17, and I think the game went overtime, or maybe even 2 overtime. But that's how Ole Miss did it in Oxford. They brought the worst combination of stuff. Texas needs to turn all that kind of stuff around. And they should be all right against Kentucky. We shall see. 2:30 kick on Saturday. Remember to check out orangebloods.com for Jason's 321 article for a great war room on Thursday night, because this time of year, there's so much going on. The guys throw all the information they've got at you on Thursday nights. So make sure you check that out. There's really good stuff. Cody Carpentier breaking down the Aggie perspective as we are 10 days away from that game. The Behind the Enemy Lines segment that column that he's been doing. All the great stuff from Ketch and Anwar and Alex and Jason. Make sure you check it out at orangebloods.com. And thanks for liking and subscribing and getting your notifications. We got the House Divided's coming up at 12. Like I said, Ketch and I are going to dig more into that Lance Jackson update. We'll talk about some of the big games of the weekend as well. CFP rankings with Texas still at number 2 in the seeding. You got Football with Friends tonight at 6. And tonight at 8:30 for the Outsiders, we have something I could not have predicted. All season long, Chance Mock has been using AI to make his picks. We call it Chance GPT. Well, tonight, Chance Mock is in the hospital because he's having a procedure done. He's letting his nurse make the picks. So Nurse GPT is going to be picking for Chance Mock tonight. We certainly hope Chance is doing well and will feel better soon and will be back on the outside. He's not able to be on the show tonight, but he's going to send us the nurse's picks from his hospital bed. So that's all part of the show tonight. Plus, we pick Texas and Kentucky and other games around the country. And sadly, I have not held on to the lead in the Pick'em contest. Somebody took first place from me. Y'all can tune in and find out who that is at 8:30 tonight. Old Fashioned tomorrow at 9. Prize Picks tomorrow at 10 o'clock. All kinds of good stuff for you at Orange Bloods Live. Thanks to over 450 of you that are in that Specs chat as we get ready to close up. Have yourselves a good Wednesday and come on and see us for House Divided in a little over an hour. This is Orange Bloods Live.